Praise God, he's okay. Praise God, President Trump's not dead. May the Lord watch over the family of the firefighter who saved his daughter by dropping on top of her. We see things through our own eyes, and I wanted to see something this morning through eyes that matter. Former Special Forces sniper knows what you want when you're going to try to take out a principal. He's also a very cautious man. He's not going to give us a political analysis, and he is not going to tip his toe into any of the conspiracy theories. And there's good reason to have conspiracy theories. An open rooftop, 150 yards from President Trump. My friend Mike O'Rourke joins me, a former Special Forces sniper, now with AOC Security. Mike, you see this through eyes that matter. Mine are simply political and guesswork. And welcome back to the program. Good to have you, sir.
Thanks, Todd. Good to be with you. Wish it was under better circumstances.
Yeah. Where were you when you heard?
I was actually in a Signal chat room. Signal's an encrypted messaging app. I'm in several rooms there, mostly security-based, global affairs-based. And someone said that something just happened. Someone took a shot at Trump and that he was hit. And so I got up and ran to the nearest television and started watching it unfold.
So we're going to go through all of this together, and I want to start at the very, very basics. You were a Special Forces sniper.
Yeah, I was also a sniper instructor for 4 years.
Okay. Let's go through the best case scenario as a sniper that you're hoping to get if you're to take down a king or a principal. What is the best case scenario you hope to be able to achieve?
Gain elevation and have an unobstructed line of sight.
Oh, that happened.
Yes, it did.
In someone you trained or with you, I mean, you can't say for certain, but if it was someone like you or someone you trained, is Trump dead?
Well, at that range, that's within within the limits of what we practice, what's called snaps and movers, which is where you have a rapid target exposure. You're not sure, maybe along a 10-meter front where it's going to pop up, and you've got 3 seconds to get off an accurate shot. That's one of the tests we had to pass. That's one of the tests I put students through. And if Trump hadn't turned his head, that shooter probably would have hit him in the temple, and it would have been lights out. Just the fact that someone was within that close a distance is just unconscionable.
Yeah, I want to talk through that, Mike, because that's going to cause, it already is causing a ton of questions in my mind. The political aspect of this, and I know you well enough to know you're not going to touch this, and I don't want you to. The Department of Homeland Security is responsible for this engagement, the Secret Service, as I understand it. The Department of Homeland Security is run by a guy who's been impeached, Mayorkas. He is a guy who is orchestrating and allowing an invasion of our country. Full stop. No question about it. He is a corrupt man. He pretends that the border is secure. We know that there are ISIS agents and Taliban-type agents and Hamas agents coming across the border. We know he refuses to stop it. He is not a man that has any of this country's best interests at heart. We know a lot. And that, to me, we take this phrase, they would never do that, and apply that to this situation. They're going to have to explain all of this. But, Mike, if you are in a counter-sniper position, like we had in the rooftops, and thank God that guy was there to take that shot, and I want to talk about that. In a counter-sniper position, talk about job roles and responsibilities and what you're doing if you are on the rooftop looking for an enemy counterpart.
Yeah, you have sectors of fire that you're responsible for. They were working. It looks like they had probably two-man teams up on the roofs. Everyone's seen the main photo or the main video of one team. There's another one just a little bit further to the south, and they're basically scanning sectors, and they're looking for places where a shooter could conceal himself. You know, there was a much higher position nearby. It was a water tower. just to the, I think just to the east of the building, approximately the same distance from the shooter as the shooter was from former President Trump. So they're watching that, making sure no one's climbing that. They certainly should have been scanning the roof line over at the, I think it's AGR, American Glass Research Facility. There were some trees in the way that could have obscured the shooter from at least one team. The team that was closest to him might have had an obstruction between them and the shooter. So I'm not even sure if it was that team who took the shot.
I go back to, and I want to dig into that further. I go back to, personal experience. This is the only thing that we have in this situation like me. You have professional experience. I only have this. A few weeks ago, I went shooting with our mutual friend, Tim Cruikshank, and a friend of ours who was a SWAT team leader in a major police force. And he's moved from back east out here. Great guy. And obviously they know what they're doing shooting. And my friend who was a SWAT leader, he trains every day. I mean, he's not willing to give up his skills. I hadn't shot since both shoulder surgeries. And so I was getting my AR back out. And after a few shots, I'm hitting, small metal targets at 150 yards up a hill standing up. And I'm not anybody's idea of a good shot. I'm okay, but not anybody is a good shot. My pistol mechanics were horrible, by the way. Horrible, horrible. Can't believe how they've changed with my shoulder. If I can hit that shot standing up, and this kid just grazes Trump's ear, I want to go back to this question. In that scenario, Trump is hit. He touches his ear. The team around him, they begin to get on the president, and there's a lot to talk about there and to analyze. Would you or your team have been able to take another 2 or 3 shots into Trump just as that security team was closing? I know that requires guesswork, but you guys trained for that.
Yeah, with a semi-automatic rifle like he had, you should get more shots off in rapid succession. The recoil is minimal. I don't know what optics the shooter had on the rifle, but with ours we probably have a variable power optic, and you have it dialed down somewhat, so you have a wider field of view, which in some cases, as things are moving, things are dynamic, helps you get back on target faster. So more shots could be gotten off. Obviously, the shooter did. They just weren't accurate on Trump, but obviously they hit other people.
Yeah, and God be with those families. I mentioned that because I watched my friends warm up into drills, 2 in the body, 1 in the head, 2 in the body, 1 in the head. And I saw them shoot moving targets, right, where they shot some metal targets and those metal targets were moving. And I saw them scope down and hit them. I go, okay, these are guys who know how to shoot. I guess my question is, it seems to me we're lucky this was a 20-year-old kid, and I want to talk about his personality, at least what we're able to tell. Not only is President Trump lucky he turned his head, but it seems to me he was fortunate that this was not a well-trained shooter.
Yeah, definitely. But you look at the distance, let's say approximately 150 yards, that's within the maximum point blank range of that 5.56 millimeter round.
Wow. Okay. The rooftop, you said unconscionable that it's unguarded. If this was a military op and this was your team and that rooftop was unguarded, what happens?
You get someone up there. I mean, all you need is one officer standing on that roof, and you now own that terrain, and it's denied from anyone else that would, go up there for nefarious purposes. They would have to engage that officer first, which would then provide all kinds of early warning to the team around the former president.
There's footage that appears to show people calling out the shooter. There is footage I've seen with my own eyes of people observing this guy belly crawling into what I saw Navy SEAL describe as the dead zone. And I'd love you to describe what the dead zone is. But him crawling up there, belly crawling, there were people who watched that happen. In fact, I was chilled. A man was standing there holding his, looked like 3 or 4 or 5-year-old daughter's hand, watching this guy belly crawl in the building. And he's probably thinking, that's got to be a cop. That's got to be a cop. That can't be a shooter. But there were people trying to draw attention to the police. You'd heard that there was a police officer who had apparently engaged the shooter, and you were thinking maybe the shooter had to hurry his shots.
Yeah, I've heard different reports that a local police officer, drawn by the crowd, pointed him out, had tried to get up onto the roof, and I guess has his, maybe his head came up over the edge of the roof line. The shooter turned and pointed the rifle at the officer, who then dropped back down out of sight, out of self-preservation.
Right.
So there, the shooter might have known, okay, he's running out of time, and he could have rushed the shot. Still, it was a very accurate shot, that first one.
Yeah, and reports are, and this are again reports, that he flunked out of a rifle class in school, and that, of course, and we expect this, he was a loner. He was those things. I do want to talk about this personal aspect because I want people to understand something that's vitally important. This kid appeared to have been a true believer. Probably a true believer that Trump was Hitler. Definitely, it seems, a true believer in the Democrat far-left cause. True believers who are lonely and isolated and feel like failures at life. There are other groups who would love to find guys like that, true believers like this. In a pilot, every time a pilot flies, they go and they do a check on their equipment. It doesn't matter if you're making half-hour puddle drop flights, right? If you're puddle-to-puddle flights, you're going to get out and you're going to check your airplane again. You're going to go through your instrument checks again, your panel checks again, your comm checks again, your fuel checks again. In a situation like this, Mike, I got to assume that a sniper team in a counter sniper position, anyone in that sort of security role, you guys probably have checklists. And my question is, people are not going to believe, Mike, that someone forgot to check that roof. Like, no one, very few people are going to believe that. Wouldn't that be on a checklist? Wouldn't you have a map and you would go through and here's point A, B, C, they'd name these things, and wouldn't someone have responsibility for that particular roof?
I've heard that even during the Secret Service advanced team work, that location was noted as a potential danger area. So yeah, I mean, when a sniper goes in their position, yeah, there's checklists. You're looking at your sector. You're looking for the places where a shooter can potentially hide. And if you look at the roof, that's actually a gabled roof. Has a pitch in the center, and the shooter was actually on the reverse slope. At least from the video that the crowd shot, he's on the reverse slope of that roof, possibly out of sight of the counter sniper teams until he comes up over the top to make a shot. And I was trying to do like a terrain elevation analysis, just using Google Street View. It's not necessarily the best tool, but that roof may have been about the same height or slightly higher than the roofs that the law enforcement sniper teams were on. So if that's the case, they might have even given up the highest ground.
Oh. And that slope roof, so he is crawling, belly crawling up a slight slope. Mm-hmm. And this was this video I sent you of a guy, former SEAL, who was looking at this saying, so that the shooter was on his belly in what that sniper called a dead zone. And that dead zone, he explained as the counter snipers may not have seen the shooter until his head popped up with the recoil of the rifle. And that's what this guy described as big mistake, to let the head pop up. Does that seem reasonable to you?
Yeah, dead zone, we would call it dead space. It's basically an area that cannot be observed. And when it's a fairly shallow pitch on that roof, but still, if he's about the same elevation or slightly higher than the sniper team, then yeah, he'll be in dead space before he crests the center of that pitch.
When President Trump is shot, he goes to his ear. The agents surround him. Talk us through your perspective as a security professional. What was good and what was bad at that moment with the response of the agents and the president, and what went on right after he went to his ear, touched his ear?
They were on him pretty quick. Obviously they're hearing the agents are hearing the sonic crack of the rounds going by. Whether they recognized that for what it was, I don't know. But as soon as they saw Trump go down, duck down, they were on him really fast. That was good. And then they made sure they had everyone together before they started moving him. And the iconic photo taken, Trump standing there with his fist up in the air and the American flag flying behind him. Honestly, I think that photo should never have been able to be taken because I don't think they should have let him stand all the way up. You know, keep him bent over at the waist where they're taller than he is, and get him off that stage. So good reaction to get on him. The standing up part I wasn't a fan of. And then when he's going to get in the vehicle to be whisked away, as he steps into the vehicle, his head comes up above the roof line of that vehicle, and he's again potentially a target because they don't know. Yeah, sure, they heard a shooter was down. They don't know how many shooters. They don't know if there's threats in the crowd. So I would not have let him stand up and have his head exposed again.
In a moment like that, I guess the security team at that point, you, the principal, you're a package. I mean, if it's well done, you're not even human anymore. You're a package. We're going to put you where you go.
Yep. Look back at the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt. They had him bent over and shoved into the limousine pretty darn fast when those shots were going off.
Yeah. And I mean, there was almost, it seemed like no gap. And of course, that shooter got really close, really, really close. It was a pistol. It was concealed. So it was a different dynamic. But yeah, he was really, really close. And we've talked through this. I did this just hastily shot video this weekend talking about President Trump and what a lot of young people don't know about that. We might talk about this week. The RNC has hardened security, or the Secret Service says they're going to harden security, beef it up with the Republican National Convention coming. How do you, is it even a beefing up thing, or is it just a, hey, let's not leave rooftops open?
Well, one thing I said early on when this happened is that we've probably seen the end of open air political events.
You think?
Obviously the conventions are inside, in enclosed buildings, and you can absolutely lock down those perimeters. So it's usually the movement phase going to and from these events where someone's going to be more vulnerable. And they do things like they might drive the vehicle inside the building before the principal gets out. There's one hotel in Seattle that's usually selected for high profile visits, including the presidents. I think the last 3 presidents have been there at this hotel. And the one of the main reasons they select it is because they can bring in the motorcade into a concealed area, a covered area,
yeah,
at that hotel.
And so let's go through a post-event analysis. God forbid there was a failure, and it was a team you ran, and there was a rooftop, perhaps the highest point, left unguarded, and your client got killed. When you guys do a post-analysis, an autopsy of this, which answer from your team makes it okay? Is it we forgot? We didn't know? What answer stops somebody from getting fired?
There is no right answer. There's no way to answer that. Like that is what we call the postmortem, the after action review. You have to be right every time. If you're in the security world, you have to be right every single time. And the bad guys only have to get it right once. And that's what keeps you up at night, is keeping that one time from happening.
So in your mind then, Mike, the Secret Service they've not gone to press conferences. The FBI gave one. And for once in recent affairs, the FBI got to go, whoa, hold it. No. The Secret Service has to answer that one. That's not ours. And I hear you saying there is no satisfactory answer. The head of the Secret Service sits down under questioning from Congress. There is no satisfactory answer. It's not, we forgot, we didn't think, someone called in sick. There is no satisfactory answer for that rooftop being left open.
There isn't, and there have to be consequences for that. People need to be held accountable. In Washington, D.C., people get very good at avoiding accountability, avoiding taking responsibility. To me, it's not even clear if those sniper teams behind Trump were actually Secret Service or if they were local law enforcement SWAT teams.